Even though a bass is a bass, its habits here in Minnesota are somewhat different from other areas of the country. The reason is the difference in table fare, the daily diet of northern bass. There are no shad here. Instead, bass feed on minnows, perch, frogs, and crawfish. Since there are no shad, the bass are not as nomadic as their southern cousins who follow the shad up and down rivers and creeks as the bait fish migrate. Here, the bass tend to live and feed in a more defined, specific area. Where they stay is governed by the food chain.
John, I've noticed just the little time that I've fished up in this part of the country that because of the lack of flowing water and migrating shad and bait fish, that the bass seem to kind of tend to stay more in one area, and I assume there's a reason for it.
Yes, it's because of the forage base. They're utilizing perch, sunfish, minnows, and they tend to be more of homebodies. They're not migratory. They establish a feeding area and pattern, and they don't move unless the forage base declines.
And they're still the predator, though, aren't they? Wherever
Yes.
they're feeding and whatever they're feeding on.
They're one of the major predators, but they're also affected by the other predators in our waters, such as the northern pike, the walleye, which predominate in the open areas and which force our bass more or less back into the heavy cover, so that you don't see too many of those fish migrating out into open water humps like you have in the southern reservoir areas. So they're confined to vegetative areas or very heavy log areas.
Will they go out on these humps and ridges and things that you have in these lakes if there is vegetation so they can hide?
There are other circumstances that come into play here, not only the other predators that control their movements, but the mesotrophic type of waters that we're faced in the southern part of the state where the thermoclines develop. And although there may be humps out there, usually those waters lose their oxygen by about mid-June or late June. So even though there is structure there, you won't find the bass there. The only other circumstances that you will find them is if the water's more turbid or the northern population or the walleye population is not a large factor to play, so it gives them some movement. Other than that, they are confined basically to the heavy cover.
In most areas of the country, the bass is the main predator. He's still a predator here, but as John Daly explained, he's not first in the pecking or eating order. The reason is that pike and muskies like to dine on bass. Minnesota's bass tend to stay away from the areas with a high population of northerns or muskie. Although there are bass on the structure breaks, the numbers aren't as great as back in the heavy vegetation, where there are not as many pike. But the bigger bass, even though found and caught both shallow and deep, will often be located on the deeper breaks or drop-offs.
John, I understand the relationship of the predator situation between the northern and walleye and muskie and the bass, but and also that you will find, as you've explained, the northerns and these predators out on these weedy breaks and drop lines. But will you also find bass out there even though the predators are there with them?
You will find them as long as there's heavy cover for those bass to protect themselves from those predators. And for example, one of our popular anglers in our Minnesota went out to Lake Minnetonka, and he found the deep weed break line and into the break-off area, deep water, and he started jigging, and in 15 minutes, he caught his 6 bass, and they were averaging 6 pounds apiece.
While bass and pike live and are caught in the same areas, during the taping of this program, it was observed that when the pike were most evident, the fewest bass were caught.
What do you say, ready to go? Let's go get us some more.
Let me get this fish in just a second.
You got one? Oh, good one. All right.
I don't know what he's doing.
Fighting like a bass. That's a bass. That's a good one, too, buddy.
He's bending a little bit.
That light line, that's nice. Oh, that might be the 5-pounder there.
Here.
Big snake, big gator. Big old gator.
I'll tell you what you do. Why don't you take him off the hook for me, huh? See, I don't know anything, but we don't have these down there, so watch. Lippy.
Lippy, yeah. No, I don't need to go to no doctor. They got some
Kiss him goodbye and throw him back.
I ain't kissed one of these. They got teeth in them, and it's awful. That's just a little one there.
He's big enough. He can stay back here. I really appreciate that.
He's fighting like a bass, though, isn't he?
Yeah, and I really haven't yet learned exactly how to take those off. So if I happen to get another one on, if you do it just one more time, I would really appreciate it.
Although bass tackle is universal, many anglers in this part of the country opt for smaller lures and lighter line because of the more open water conditions. Hence, more spinning tackle is used. Even though there's weed cover on the breaks, the bass, as Mike Artman points out, tend to feed in the clearer areas like the sandy hole he's fishing.
What did you mark when we came in there or coming up to?
Well, we come up to a wall of a weed line off of a sharp drop, and there's a pocket in there. And in that pocket, it's bare, and them fish just, you know, you throw your bait into that open area, and them fish come out and pick it up. Because if you throw it into the weeds, it's hard for them to find it once it gets down in there, and they have to hit it, you know, on the way down. So if you, naturally, when it hits the bottom, it's gonna, you know, it's gonna sit there, and they're gonna be able to see it and think about what they're gonna do. And they'll generally come out and get it.
But you've got to be close in the weeds.
Yeah, you've got to be right on the edge of the weeds. It's critical to be right on the edge of them where it breaks off into this clean area. So they back in there.
Okay, so they don't sit out there in the clean area?
No, no, they don't. They use the weeds as their cover like you would a tree or wood or any of that type of stuff. It's a hiding place. It's an ambush point. And they generally stack up in them pretty good. There's a lot of them in these northern lakes. There's just a lot of them. That's a good marker. There's always fish under that marker.
Darn right. You're underneath it to get the shade. There he is.
Oh, I had one too. That would have been a double.
got
That's
him?
a good one, fish. That's a good one there, Chuck. He's coming up. That's a good fish. There he comes. Nice fish.
Good
3
fish.
pounds. 3 pounds. I had one on the same time. It just moved a little
Come
bit.
up.
That's a nice fish. Pretty fish there, boy. That's a good quality. Look where he's got that hook.
He ate it, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Come here, boy. Come here, boy. Come here, boy. Come on. Come here, boy. Come here.
I got one.
Good one?
Double. Yep, look here. He ain't as big as yours, but he's... Yes, well, we found them. They moved a little bit again.
That's a nice fish.
You bet it is. He's
Now, when you catch a lot of these,
Yeah, that's pretty common on this lake right there. That's the good tournament fish right there. That's about 2 1/4 pounds.
yeah. Love it. Go grow up, fish.
That'd been nice to have a double there. We had them going.
But not all these Minnesota bass live out in the middle of the lake on structure. In fact, even up here, there's some great down south fishing.
How do you like this open water fishing?
I like it. I like to catch fish, you know. I think it's neat. It's not what I'm used to. You know, I do a lot of open water fishing, but there's things on the bottom like stumps and old dams and things like that. But, you know, the druthers would be, you know, I kind of like go flipping willow trees and trying to get the critters out of them.
You like flipping willows?
Oh, love it. We do an awful lot of it.
How'd you like to do that?
I'd love it. We're back in Oklahoma.
No, we're about 10 minutes away from a lake that's excellent for that. If you like to go, we can go.
You got 5 more minutes here and we're gone. All right?
All right.
What size of fish we catch over there?
We're going to get anywhere from 2 to 6 pound fish. There's going to be a lot of 2 1/2s and 3s. We should catch, well, 7, 8, 9 4-pounders. I was on it last week and my arms got sore.
That's where I want to go.
If that's an indication of what you want to do, that's what we can do.
In fact, we could go right now. You know, after that one cast that I just made.
Uh-huh. Well, what do you say? You out of here?
Do it.
The Bassmasters will be right back with a look at Minnesota bassin' Southern style. Don't go away.